Smith-Morra Gambit is alive. I can feel it. Somewhere it's still alive. And then he can take my rook. I'm fine with that. I don't care about material. I care about his king. So we can play here king f2. And then he can give a check here. I'm fine with that. I just play here, but king g3 is good enough. There's a mating net here, and I'm winning the game at this point. There's no way they can escape from this. Hey guys, today we are going to talk about Smith-Morra Gambit. I'm going to show you an exciting game that I won using this interesting gambit. If you're new to the channel, I'm Fidemaster Michel. I'm chess content creator, but also a professional player, professional coach. And in the channel, I try to create chess content for improvers. And I have tutorials about openings, about middle games, about end games, but also I try to make the chess content as simplified as possible, so it's easy to understand, easy to get. So that's the idea. So if you like it, feel free to subscribe. So let's get into this great win with Smith-Morra Gambit. So I'm going to play e4, of course. My opponent is going to play Sicilian, c5, and then I play d4, c takes d4, and then c3. So here officially we have Smith-Morra Gambit on the board. And also let me tell you something. If you want to learn how to play this gambit, there's a tutorial in the channel. It's only 7 minutes, and you can learn how to play this interesting opening or interesting gambit in your games. It's dynamic, it's aggressive, and it's very interesting. And also I could say very recommended for beginners, intermediate players, even for advanced level. It's a really nice opening that we can play with interesting performance. If we are aggressive players, like tactical players, it can work really well. So let's see what happens here. My opponent accepts the gambit. That's actually the main line and probably the best option here for black. And here we're going to play knight takes e3. My opponent plays knight c6, and then I play knight to f3. e6 is very normal, and then bishop c4 is also pretty standard in this position, as active as possible. Here the most normal move is d6. My opponent is playing here knight e7. I decided to castle kingside here, and then there's this move knight to g6. Here I played queen e2, which is pretty standard in these positions because I want to bring the rook to d1 and develop the bishop somewhere, and then bring the rook to c1. That's what I usually play, and it's the general plan for Smith-Morra Gambit. But let me tell you, the engine likes something like h4. It's a little crazy, also a little hard to find. But it's interesting. If he takes the pawn, we capture here, and yeah, we're losing the second pawn. But then this move, knight b5, pressure on c7, some fork, some threat, also pressure on d6. So basically, we have good pressure on the dark squares in this line. But well, of course I didn't play something like that. It's a rapid game, and it's not easy to find an idea like this one. So I just played the normal standard queen e2, and then bishop to e7, bishop to e3, pretty normal black castles, and then this move rook f d1. All this is very typical in the Smith-Morra Gambit. Black plays here a6, and they want to expand here with b5. So I decided to prevent that plan and play a4 here, because this expansion is not only expansion, is also development. He wants to play bishop b7 after that. So I thought I had to prevent it, and I played a4, which is actually a good idea. Black plays here knight e5, not so good. Something more normal is b6, just developing the bishop very quickly. So knight e5, I take it, he takes back, I save my bishop, and black plays here queen a5. But well, before we continue, let me tell you, look at this position. This is something that we're going to see very often if we play Smith-Morra Gambit. The idea is that we're going to have very active positions for our pieces, like the rook very good, minor pieces are going to be very good, the other rook is coming over here. On the other side, black will have some trouble to develop his pieces, especially, the bishop is going to be in trouble, so they need to find a way to develop the bishop. It's annoying, takes time, takes some pawn move that probably creates more weaknesses. So that's what happens in the Smith-Morra Gambit. It's not like you have an immediate furious attack on the king side. It's like you have a better position, your pieces are more active, you have more space and more control in the center. And then after that, well, we see how we can turn that into something. So I knew this, and I said, well, this is going according to plans. I'm going to get into the position that I want for a Smith-Morra Gambit line. So black plays here queen a5, and I play here f4, expanding, getting a tempo, controlling many squares around the center and also on the king side. Black plays here queen b4, counter-attacking my bishop. And I said, no, you're not getting my bishop. I'm just playing here bishop to a2. Although we need to say that the best move is actually taking the knight here. And then after he takes the bishop, we can play this move a5. This position is very good for white. Let me tell you why. They cannot play b6 and they cannot play d6. So basically these pawns cannot move. And if these pawns cannot move, this bishop cannot be developed. And if the bishop cannot be developed, I'm always better, even when I have a pawn down here. So that was the best line, again, according to engines. But well, this one is actually pretty understandable, I could say. Well, in the game I played bishop a2, very logical. It's a rapid game, so I don't want to think too much. And the most normal move is to keep the bishop on the board. So bishop a2 is fine. Black plays here knight to c6, and then rook ac1 is pretty standard. b5 expanding, and finally trying to develop in some way that bishop. And this is where things start to get more and more interesting every time, because I thought if you lose one pawn in the opening for some activity, well, we can lose another pawn if you increase even more the activity, or if you increase the attack and the pressure on the king side around the enemy king. So that's what I thought. So I said, I'm fine losing this pawn. I'm not really worried about that. I just want to continue improving my pieces and my position. So I played this move bishop to b1, pressure over here. My plan is very simple. I want to play e5, I want to play knight e4, I want to play queen here. And of course, eventually there might be f5, there might be rook lift over the third rank, all those ideas. So I saw that the king side was not very well protected. They don't have the knight on f6. They do have the bishop, which is helping a little, but I still thought that my attack could be very strong. So that's why I didn't worry about this pawn on a4, and my opponent accepts that pawn, and then of course e5 is pretty logical here. Black plays rook b8, and this is a move that we were talking about, knight to e4. And here we need to say I'm losing a third pawn. My opponent can play here queen takes b2. And actually, let me tell you, this is getting into a point where there's no retreat, right? There's no comeback. There's no middle point here. I'm going somewhere where I either win by checkmate or I lose, and it's going to be a disaster because I have already 3 pawns down. He has a passed pawn here on a4. So this is getting really, really complicated for both, right? So here I continued with queen h5. Again, it's the most normal move, the most logical move, but not the best. According to engines, a very good move here is bishop to c2. And let me show you the idea. In some positions you can play rook b1 and the queen is more or less trapped over there. But also, for example, there's a tricky line here. If he tries to get our bishop, we are winning the game with a nice tactic. We can play this move, knight to f6. And the idea is that we are clearing here, so when he takes the knight, we have, boom, bishop h7. And if he takes the bishop, we get the queen. So that's the idea. So he cannot play that knight b4 in that position. So bishop c2 works fine. It's probably the best option here. Very solid. I keep everything under control, and then I can focus on my attack with my pieces a little more organized. I just played here queen h5 directly, and my opponent is going to make a mistake here. It's going to play g6. According to engines, h6 defends the position. One more time, this is something that happens when we play gambits. The engine is going to say, well, this move just wins. And for engines, it's pretty simple. And also for us, when we have the engine in front, it's going to be pretty simple to understand. But in the middle of the game, when you have 5 minutes in the clock, it's not going to be easy to understand that a6 wins and that g6 doesn't win. And it's still very complicated with g6. So the engine sees it very clearly. a6 is good for black, and probably is the best option, we need to say. But, well, that's not so easy in a game. He plays g6, and of course queen h6 here is very clear. And here there is a decisive mistake for black. My opponent plays a3. My opponent is just ignoring my ideas. It's not really caring too much about any threat that I can have on the king side. So he just continues with his plan, putting pressure, trying to distract the focus of the position to the queen side, counter-attacking over there. But actually, at this point, it is white to move, and white is winning the game. You can think a little, but I will tell you the idea in the next seconds. So here, my plan is that I want to play knight f6. So if he takes, I take, and then I might have a mating net. But this time it's not working. I mean, right now it's not working. He can play queen takes f6. So I'm going to base my strategy on getting rid of this queen. So if I can get rid of the queen, then this idea is going to be winning, because when he takes, I take, mating net on g7. And he cannot escape from this. So I saw this idea and said, well, rook c2 is going to get something like that. But also, let me tell you something. It's not going to be so easy, because there is this line where they can sacrifice the queen for the bishop and the rook. And they already have many pawns up, and they already have a pawn on 3rd rank, so they have more than enough compensation here. If they lose the queen for rook and the bishop, they are still up in material, so it's going to work very well if they can actually defend, which I'm not going to allow. So that's why this is very interesting, because after rook c2, this is not going to work. In the game, my opponent plays queen a1, and we're going to see that very soon. But after queen takes bishop, I have the amazing move, knight to f6. I don't care about taking his queen. I don't care about him taking my bishop. I don't care about him taking my rook, not even about giving a check, and not even about taking another rook here on c2. That's why this is so interesting. So let's see what can happen. He takes the knight, I take the bishop. And then he can take my rook. I'm fine with that. I don't care about material. I care about his king. So we can play here king f2. And then he can give a check here. I'm fine with that. I just play here king g3. Very good move, right? And we're still in time to make a mistake here, a blunder. If I play king f3, I'm in trouble. He has a way to continue with many checks. Black can play here knight d4, and if I capture rook b3, and then if I block bishop b7, eventually he's getting g2. So this line is winning. So again, I'm still in time to blunder the game in this line if I play king f3. But king g3 is good enough. There's a mating net here, and I'm winning the game at this point. There's no way they can escape from this. So that's the idea of this line. That's what I thought when I played rook c2. My opponent doesn't take here directly, and he plays here queen a1, planning to continue controlling f6. But, well, that's not really a problem. I have a way to deal with this. White can play here rook to a2, continuing with the pressure here. Now everything is controlled over here. The queen cannot stay defending f6, so this is just winning the game for white. After queen takes bishop, that's what happened in the game. I played a knight f6. Again, I don't care about the rooks, the checks, or anything. I just care about black king, bishop takes knight. Oh, and we need to say that the king moves we just have made here. That's mating 1. So they take, we take, check, king f2, and at this point my opponent resigned. Checkmate is unstoppable. This is a mating net, so this is game over. Important ideas in this game, in this position, when I decided to play Smith-Morra Gambit, really recommended and really interesting. Also here, when I decided to play this idea of rook c2, not caring about the bishop, but also finding the whole plan of moving the queen away from the diagonal. And finally here, when I decided to sacrifice everything just to create a mating net here on the king side. If you want to learn how to play Smith-Morra Gambit, I will include a link in a card of this video, and it's actually a 7-minute tutorial. Pretty simple, everything's explained, and you will be ready to play Smith-Morra Gambit in your own games. I strongly recommend it. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any question, let me know in the comments. Check out this video over here. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Thank you, like, subscribe, play the right move, and see you on the next.